It's time to apply for preschool. At St. Clair Preschool, you'll give your child a head start with a journey that will prepare them for kindergarten and lifelong learning. The Head Start program is for kids between 3 and 5 years of age. Too young for preschool? St. Clair also offers Early Head Start, a home-based program designed for pregnant women and children from birth to 3 years of age. For more information or to apply, visit stclair.org or call us today. Reaching children through families.
You're watching CNET, Center County's Government and Educational Access Network.
I will call to order the regular meeting of the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors for April 4th. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, up first we have announcements, so I'll look to the manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to members of the board, staff, and the public for joining us this evening for this April 4th Board of Supervisors regular meeting. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the Zoom platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chairwoman calls on you. If you are attending in person with us this evening in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name and your municipality of residence and the topic you wish to speak on. Prior to commencing the meeting, I have a few short procedural items to cover. First, members of the public attending using Zoom platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. And finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the Zoom meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Ms. Strickland? Here. Ms. Stevens? Here. Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Here.
Ms. Danini?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. While we're in announcements, I'll just take the opportunity to say that we had received a request for a discussion on a grant match request from Center Markets, and so that will be appearing on our next agenda, our next meeting agenda for April 12th at 1:15 p.m., just to let everybody know that'll be on there. And that concludes announcements. Okay, up next is public input. Any members of the public who'd like to comment on any item that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to come up to the podium. And not seeing any, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. And we have two sets of minutes, one from March 21st and the other from February 27th.
This is Patty. Motion to approve the minutes listed in the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Hi, Laura.
Thank you. Any corrections, changes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. And then we'll move to authorities, boards, and commission reports. Up first is our Center Area Transportation Authority report with Mr. Amari Patterson. And your report was included in the agenda. Thank you so much for that. If there's anything you care to highlight from that, it's your opportunity.
Good afternoon or evening. I wanted to briefly explain number one with the attachments. There was a clerical error in the transition, me being new to the seat within the last month. So we'll make sure we'll correct that for the next time. But the two main just items for awareness and for perhaps discussion at one point that are, or three items, but two for discussion. One is that the CATA executive director resigned. There was a lot of work into finding an interim executive and a support team for that executive. So operations will continue to as normal, if not better, with this new team in place. Number two, CNET is an option for CATA, and so perhaps if for this Ferguson have a position on CATA using CNET for future in that singular location. And then the third item was the SPPA, where CATA decided not to engage, and Ferguson has an opinion there. Again, please email me, and I'll continue to make overtures on behalf of Ferguson Township.
Thank you so much. And again, welcome to your new position on the ABC, and we very, very much appreciate your service and volunteering for that. So any questions for Mr. Patterson?
So did you want our opinion right now on?
I defer to the board. I guess I threw it out as an email. If there's kind of a longer discussion, but I'm open.
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
Right. So we can, keep this just a minute or two. If you had something you really needed to share, then that's fine. If any board member cares to follow up with him, because you won't meet again for a little while, but if there's something you wanted to share.
How terrible. So there were two things. The second one was the SPPA. SPPA. What was the first?
CNET being an option for CATA.
Right.
To have
I knew
kind
I
of
wanted to
televised.
comment on that. Yes, please. That would be fantastic. CNET is just so valuable. Our residents rely on it. I, seat here, rely on it to watch other bodies' meetings and can really stay informed on what's going on. And I think they maybe are the last authority in the region that hasn't yet joined CATA. I'm not sure on that, but I think that's accurate. So
The last authority that hasn't joined CNET?
I'm sorry, CNET.
So again, we'll just keep this quick. But if you,
So,
yes.
I mean, I think it would be great, period.
Thank you. And then we'll follow up since we didn't really have, a chance to deliberate on anything. But was there something else?
No, are we
Okay.
deliberating on that at some point?
No, he was just saying if you had feedback to email him. So
Oh, okay.
since we didn't have a question presented in front of us, so I was saying we could all just email him some feedback. And if at his next report, and this is his first report, so, we want to introduce you to the system before we put you on the spot with anything. And, kind of had an opportunity to talk about process and getting things up for discussion, and very much looking forward to working together on all that. So if there is nothing else, and again, we can email you any thoughts on those matters. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much. Very, very much
Thanks,
appreciated.
everybody.
Okay, we'll move on to the Spring Creek Watershed Commission with Mr. Kevin Abbey.
Good evening. I promise to be very brief. I have sent to the board and staff a report from the Watershed Commission's meeting in mid-May, or excuse me, mid-March. Just as a reminder, the commission meets every other month, the odd months of the year, the third Wednesday. So our next meeting will be in May. I just wanted to advise that the bylaws that we talked about back in the organizational timeframe have been adopted and are now in place. We're beginning the work of trying to organize committees and get still an all-volunteer organization, with the exception of a contractor that does a little bit of work relative to the website. So I would be remiss if I didn't remind folks that the Watershed Commission is the largest commission of its kind in Center County. There are 12 members within the watershed, created back in 2007, and so it's been through economic downturn and COVID, and we're trying to bring it back up to being fully functional. I probably should report that I was, as the township's alternate to the commission, I was elected as treasurer recently. So I'm making a commitment that the financial side of the house reports back to the 12 members, and being faithful to the original articles of incorporation that were from 2007. If there are any questions, I'd happy, but I want to get out of the way for Public Works, and teasing Mr. Modriger here that he gets attention on his agenda items.
Thank you so much. Questions for Mr. Abbey? Not seeing any? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.
Okay, moving on to special reports. We have a number of items on our calendar for diversity, equity, and inclusionary initiatives. And up next is the Township and Fiscal Responsibility section with a report from Ms. Denise McCann with Center Helps.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. So I just want to spend a minute or two. Sometimes I talk more than I say I'm going to talk, so I'll try to be really aware of that when I feel really passionate about something, and of course I do about Center Helps. So since this is the first meeting, I know I'll be reporting here on a regular basis. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of Center Helps. And the way I like to do that is just a quick flip through our annual report. So Center Helps James, I don't know why it's not. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So yeah, our mission is to empower anyone in crisis or need, and we do that through having compassionate trained counselors who are available 24/7 to provide emotional support and connections to resources. So our three main programs that we do at Center Helps is our Youthful Offenders Program. The Youthful Offenders Program is a program that it's majority Penn State students who get underage or any kind of drug and alcohol related citation. They go through our class, and then in lieu of paying a fine and having the citation on their record, they can go through our class and then the charges aren't filed. So we do that. We see almost 200 students a year. Of course, that has fluctuated with COVID, but our hope is that we're providing them with some educational materials and kind of helping them get the perspective of seeing how their behavior has an impact on our community. And then hopefully that behavior will change, or at least they can make some adjustments to the behavior so that they can stay safe. Then we have our 24/7 hotline. So our hotline is staffed by mostly Penn State volunteers. We operate 24/7, 365. We are connected to the 988 Suicide Prevention and Crisis Lifeline. And that program, not only does it provide emotional support and suicide prevention, but we also provide connection to resources. So if somebody is in a crisis, and that crisis could be eviction, it could be an emotional crisis, it could be that they're going to lose one of the utilities, they can call our hotline, and we can connect them with different resources like Housing Transitions, 211, Mid-Penn Legal, whatever. So we work very closely with many other nonprofits, and if I tell the nonprofits to keep, we do resource verification to make sure that all our resources are kept up to date. So if we know about a resource that is available in our community, we can provide that information to people who are in crisis or who are in need. And then our basic needs case management program is where the funding that you got that was provided through Ferguson Township, that is where that funding is supported. So that program, basic needs case management, is exactly what it says it is. People who are facing eviction, utility shut off, any other kind of crisis, we help them stabilize the crisis and do work with them so that that the crisis will be stabilized through a financial gift or helping them with that finance, but also through some awareness. We do budgeting with them, so we do budgeting counseling, and the goal is that by providing that stabilization and making a plan for moving forward, they will not need to come back to us again for additional resources. So the funding that we received from Ferguson is being used through our basic needs case manager, uses that as a resource to help people when they are in crisis. To date, we've spent around $4,400 of that money, of the $20,000, and we've assisted 6 families. Those families all had situations where they lost jobs due to medical issues, either with a child or another family member, or they were underemployed and their employment was dependent on events that were happening in our county. As we know, with COVID, there was less work available in that kind of arena. Or they themselves had a medical situation that prevented them from maintaining the level of employment they needed to maintain in order to meet their financial responsibilities. So we helped a family of 3 with their rent to stabilize them because there was a medical situation with the family, and of course that was temporary, and once they got on their feet, so far so good. Another situation we've helped 2 single parent moms. Both cases they lost their jobs and were then reemployed, so found employment, but needed help to bridge that gap to keep their utilities on or keep the rent up to date so that they weren't evicted. And then, so we stopped 2 evictions and 3 different utility shutoffs from happening through that funding. And then the last case was a single parent mom who had 2 high-need children, and they had a medical expense come up that was not covered by insurance, and so that depleted any extra money they had or their ability to pay rent. So in each case, once we were able to bridge the gap, then the families were able to stabilize, and hopefully, I mean, it's only been 3 months, but hopefully they'll be able to maintain their situations. So we are grateful to have the money as a resource to be able to be available to help families, because that's the other problem that we're seeing. We have staff who can do the work and make the connections, but if we don't have resources available to offer, there's not much we can do. And we're seeing, we do a lot of work with churches and private dollars. So churches we package money through churches. So if we know a family needs $500 to cover a utility bill, we might get $100 from 5 different churches. So that's a lot of work that one case manager is doing, right? But we're seeing the churches, their funds are being depleted halfway through the month. So we get to the 3rd, 4th week of the month, and we're very limited on the resources that we then have available. So this has been a really wonderful resource for us, and as you can see, has helped 6 families so far to date in 3 months. So, any questions?
Thank you so much. Questions for Ms. McCann?
No, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And I have materials there if anybody wants the materials. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and presenting and sharing that with us. Okay, we'll move on to COG and Regional Committee reports. We have the Park and Recreation Governance Committee.
I am apologizing, I forgot to write my report, which actually there isn't much, other than the fact that we had a discussion about perceived problems and then quickly moved into our next homework assignment, which is to just do more reading of the history. We were also supposed to read the authority, agreements, and just a whole lot of reading assignment for our next meeting.
Okay.
Just a whole lot of history, so no motion there, and still nothing about the facilitator, sorry, having brain fog. The facilitator, it's sort of a low priority right now, but they are working and hoping to get a facilitator in there for our group.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions on this report? And I'm looking at Corey as well.
I have some comments.
Yes.
I'm really sorry to hear that it's such a low priority for the rest of the COG.
Well, I think when I say low priority, it falls behind the finance director and the,
Park director.
Fire director.
Yeah, but here's what it doesn't fall behind, right? It doesn't fall behind the Millbrook Marsh presentation, right? And lining that up.
Well, this is I would say just if you have comments just about her report, that's fine.
I do.
But
I didn't finish my sentence yet, or you would.
Let's stay on the topic and not get off to boardwalk or other things.
Right, she brought up the topic of prioritization, so that's what
And
this
she's
is
talking about the
related to.
staffing of that facilitator position.
Right, but the staff has enough time to present the Millbrook presentation. That is being moved forward.
But that's not on her governance committee.
No, but what is what percentage each municipality pays of the next project.
So what
And
I would
so
say is this
far,
is a comment for our
Ferguson
Parks and Recreation
Township-
Capital Committee
It's not, Lisa,
representative.
you're not letting me finish a sentence.
Because you're getting off topic, and I'd really like comments
Okay,
for
the
her
Parks
about her
Governance Committee should prioritize their work before they ask for any more money, where Ferguson Township owes the most.
Okay. Got it.
If they do not, they should not ask for more money because Ferguson Township is being unfairly asked to pay the most. Continued comment. The statistics we have indicate that we should not be paying the most. And unfortunately, instead of us being able to actually talk about that, it's been pigeonholed into this committee where it's dying. And so our board is going to need to get to be like Half Moon for anybody to care about what we're saying, is what it sounds like. So please do not prioritize any further asks
And that's
until
your
you
opinion.
work out
Thank you.
who owes the most money on them.
And I think that's kind of out of the scope of what Patty's trying to do on the governance committee.
Well, the problem wasn't revealed to us. She said the problem was discussed, but nobody told us what it was. And the problem is we in our document said this was part of the problem. So we haven't been able to discuss it. So what was the problem that they discussed in the meeting? Was it anything of what I'm saying, or is the problem nothing having to do with the funding structure? What's the problem according to that committee? Since the report wasn't in the agenda and I didn't hear what the problem was.
Yes, I'm sorry. I did
No,
not
it's
get
not
that
your
together.
problem. It's that we didn't have any agenda time to talk about it, so.
Right. No, there were different approaches. What sticks with me the most was Dan Trevino from Patton Township had sort of went back to the comp plan and referred to one of the issues in the comp plan, saying that, and do we already have the solution, or do we already have it in place through the comp plan what the problem is with, because it was identified that.
It was, yes, it was. Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Thank you. I just would further comment then, based on what I had heard, the problem revealed by Dan Trevino is, I also, as the Ferguson Township representative last year, when I was in your seat, Patty, I had commented that same comment that in the Parks Comp Plan,
Right.
that information had been available, and I requested the chair several times, focus on that, and that is when he developed his alternative of how it should be discussed. I'm happy to hear that Patton Township, the gentleman that has the seat in Patton Township, has now brought that up in ways that ears can hear it. So I appreciate that, and I would like for us as a board to please then review that part of the comp plan, because that's part of your homework, right?
It is, yes.
Okay.
We're doing the comp plan.
Okay, so in the comp plan that is found on the COG website, there is a section in there that
it's
talks
chapter
about
7.
governance, chapter,
I think it's chapter 7. that
okay,
sticks in
okay,
my-
okay, that talks about governance, and there were solutions generated
Yes.
to deal with the problem of governance. And so we should all read that, because that's where that committee is right now. And we don't really need a consultant to move forward. We can just all agree that the solution was already in there, and we should talk about that, maybe.
Thank you. I think you have your comment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Up next was Facilities Committee, and I think that was covered last time per the agenda.
Yes.
So, okay. We had no unfinished business, so moving on to the consent agenda. Did anyone need to remove any item from the consent agenda? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the items listed on the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Okay, up next is a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, approving settlement stipulation by and between SUSO Northland LP, Center County Board of Assessment Appeals, Ferguson Township, and State College Area School District to resolve a pending tax assessment appeal for tax parcel numbers 24012016, 24012018, and 24012029 filed to Center County Civil Action 2020-2899.
Yes, Madam Chair, provided with the agenda packet is a resolution for the board to formally accept and approve the settlement for the tax assessment appeal for the tax parcels written into the agenda. And provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for the board's consideration.
Anyone care to make the motion?
I move the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution to authorize the tax assessment appeal for parcel number 24-12-16-0000, 24-012-018-0000, and 24-012-029-0000.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? And I believe this is a roll call vote.
Yes. This is a roll call vote for resolution number 2023-14. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Deneni?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I skipped right over staff reports. Were there any comments, questions on those? They were included.
Is there anything any staff member wants to highlight, anything?
Yes.
No, provided with the agenda packet is my report.
Thank you. Mr. Moderick, or anything you wanted to highlight from your report?
Included in the agenda package, a copy of my report.
Thank you.
If I can answer any questions.
I have a quick question. I just have a question about the banner across Route 45 project. I don't know that it's actually in the report, but I think it may be in the reports. My question is, I just had attended the small area planning committee meeting, the last meeting, and during that time, they had said that staff had come out and done a walk with them to find a location for that banner. I just wondered if anything came out of that. The banner that went from one side to the other, like the Strawberry Festival banner in Lamont, except for in Pine Grove Mills, and saying something like the Rosebud Festival or something, I'm not sure. What is it? Redbud, that's it?
Yeah, I don't have anything to report because I don't know
Okay.
that staff's done anything recently in that regard.
Oh, I think Mr. Siebert was out there.
There has not been a decision made on identification of the banner, location for the banner, or steps forward.
Okay, I think the main question wasn't the location, but I think it was the visibility to the blinking light. I had forwarded then an email from 2018 from Dave, back when we were talking about it in 2018 with the previous manager. And it really, I think the question has always been getting that expert opinion, the traffic engineer's opinion about not blocking the light. I think that's the only question that's holding like everything up. And so I just wonder if there is just like a footage, like, oh, if it's 30 feet, or, you know, if there's any kind of information that could be given. That was, I think, what the staff was there to do, but.
Yeah, I don't have any. I haven't talked to
Okay.
Ron about it.
Gotcha.
I could talk to the manager and see what information.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3 under new business. Resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the township manager to execute an agreement and contract for professional services. Mr. Modricker.
So our 2023 operating budget contains funds to do some remodeling. To do the remodeling, we'll need to engage the services of an architect. The architect that has been involved most recently with our space study and the last remodeling is By Design Consultants. They did prepare a proposal for us, and I am recommending that the Board of Supervisors authorize the township manager to sign a professional services agreement with By Design Consultants, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $27,360.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors authorize the motion that was just read by Dave Modricker.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second on that motion?
I don't know, I'm leaving soon. I just kind of wait for other people to do things because I'm not going to be here. I'll second it. It's Laura, and I will second it. And then I have a question.
Okay.
All
right, discussion. Okay, we have a motion, a second discussion. Did you have?
Yeah, I just wondered what the changes for, like what the offices will be used for. Thanks.
Yeah, so with the operating budget, there had been discussion about adding some office spaces with their, I think there's 4 new staff positions. And so creating spaces where we can put dividers up for some of that confidentiality. One is a human resource director position. So having the walls and the door for some confidentiality discussions as we expand human resources. That also includes the a division between the GIS coordinator as well, in between the GIS coordinator and the executive assistant. So the renovation is to also provide some walls that have been identified for a space in the Public Works Planning Zoning area where we might have the Economic Development Coordinator position, as well as walls between the Ordinance Enforcement Officer as well and the IT Administrator position. So to allow for privacy for those to be able to conduct business.
Thanks. One quick follow-up question. The person that hasn't been hired, the community development person that'll be in planning and zoning, is there space available for that person for when they are hired?
We've identified a location outside planning and zoning area.
Okay.
Currently has files, and we need to get those files scanned. So we have them digitally accessible, and then put the hard copies downstairs. And then, of course, the renovation would allow for a space for the walls and the door.
Is that file, I'm sorry, one more question about it. Is that file scanning happening so that it's like in
There's a
process?
non-disclosure form that's being reviewed by the solicitor, and when we have that, we will be able to move forward with getting the files shipped to a facility for
Thanks.
scanning.
Thanks so much. Exciting stuff. All right, glad to hear that all this is happening. It's really great. Good.
Other questions?
Yeah, I had some concerns because it was my understanding that there was some remodeling and renovations done just in like 2019 going into 2020 Also understand we did add some office space with the addition of the new Public Works building. So like, were these like tied into that 2019 remodel or?
No, yes, there were renovations done in 2019, and the construction of the Public Works building does have a second floor where there's an open space and there are cubicles, and there are plans, I believe, maybe in the long-term range to build out the Public Works department. And so that open space on the second floor with cubicles is not currently being utilized to its full extent. We have some of the offices, the building ground superintendent's office is in that location, and the two foremans, the arborist, and the superintendent of the road crew. So we have some offices there in that location. Admittedly, it's not utilized to its fullest extent. In 2019, or since 2019, our staffing levels have increased. I want to say there's 5 positions in this operating budget. The building grounds and superintendent position was a new position in 2022. The ordinance enforcement officer went from part-time to full-time in 2022, and I think in 2020 it might be safe to say there were no new hires during the pandemic. But I kind of run through the increase in staffing levels to meet the needs of the operations, to kind of to explain why these office spaces weren't necessarily in the renovations presented in 2019.
I just was kind of taken back when I saw this, how we had done some renovations back then, and just wondering why didn't we necessarily plan for this growth then, instead of going through the whole process again of a consultant, more construction. Also, does every office necessarily need to be enclosed? Are there any alternatives that we could look at that would accomplish our needs, including alternative space that is available, depending on how long? Like, do we really need the offices tomorrow, or is this something we can put down the road a little bit further to try to save money, stretch money, and use what we have available?
I think that's a great comment, and I think, do we need it? Like, could we perform the functions of those positions? I would say that there are 2 positions I would strongly advocate that they have privacy, and those are, and one of the 2 what has requested to have that, but the other one not. I would also just share that the I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson.
No worries.
So yeah, I can't really explain why in 2019 maybe there had been some discussion with the former manager and thinking about staffing levels increasing, or maybe not. I can't speak to that. I will share with you, for the first time in my career, it was in part of the negotiations and an offer extended to a prospective employee, there was a request for a door and walls. And so I think that, again, it's not necessarily critical to the function and operation of every position, but I find that it has become a desirable negotiation tool that's been presented at the the offer to a prospective employee. And as mentioned, I think there are 2 employees that I would absolutely suggest. In fact, the IT administrator having access, to the police and being able to work on the, protected information will likely need privacy and separated from the ordinance enforcement officer. I see the executive assistant at times working with material that can be considered private or confidential, and same with the human resource administrator.
Thank you. Thanks for offering that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? And if there are none, I believe this too is a roll call vote.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a roll call vote for Resolution 2023-15. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Deneni?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, up next is a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to officially recognize Public Works Week. Ms. Martin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Provided with the agenda is a link to, provided with the agenda is a draft proclamation to officially observe Public Works Week during the third full week of May to recognize the important work done by Public Works. The American Public Works Association announced Connecting the World Through Public Works as the theme for the 2023 National Public Works Week poster. And provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the proclamation designating May 21st through May 27th, 2023 as Public Works in Ferguson Township. Public Work Week, whatever.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you. Mr. Modricker, if you have any comments or if anyone has any comments to share.
Thanks for extending the proclamation, and we'll probably have some type of an activity plan that week that we'll give you some information on. It may not be the order of magnitude that it was last year. It may be smaller, but we'll let you know. Thanks for recognizing Public Works Week.
Absolutely, thank you. Other
Thanks
discussion?
for everything you do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I try to thank you other than times of Public Works Week as well. Really appreciate it year-round.
Especially after the storms we had too, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good
I
timing.
will extend your thanks to all in Public Works.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Okay, next up is a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to officially recognize Police Week. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Provided with the agenda is a draft proclamation to officially observe Police Week during the second full week of May. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to the law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for your consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make the motion?
Move that the Board of Supervisors adopt a proclamation designating May 14th through May 20th, 2023 as Police Week in Ferguson Township.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Thank you, and I'll go to Chief Petrick first, if you had any comments you wanted to share.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to inform the board that on May 17th, the annual Center County Law Enforcement Memorial Service will take place at noon at the Center County Courthouse steps. So all are welcome for that solemn event, and I thank you for considering this proclamation.
Thank you. Other comments? Thanks very much. Thanks for bringing this to us, and very much appreciate your department's work. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. Okay, next up is a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to recognize May of 2023 as Bike Month. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ferguson Township supports the continued efforts of Center Bike and the Center Region Planning Agency to promote bicycle riding of all types throughout the Center Region. The Township recognizes that biking is a healthy, convenient, financially and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent tool for recreation and physical fitness and enjoyment of Center County's scenic beauty, natural attractions, and friendly neighborhoods. And in partnership with the Center County Council of Governments, the Township designates May 2023 as Bike Month, May 15th through May 21st, 2023 as Bike to Work Week, and May 19th, 2023 as both Bike to Work Day and Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the proclamation designating May 2023 as Bike Month, May 15th through May 21st, 2023 as Bike to Work Week, and May 19th, 2023 as Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any comment on this item? I didn't think we had anybody attending for this item, but very nice to have this annually recognized. All right, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Okay. Next is a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to recognize Public Service Recognition Week. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Provided with the agenda is a draft proclamation to officially observe Public Service Recognition Week during the first full week in May, which is May 7th through May 12th, 2023. And during Public Service Recognition Week, all Ferguson Township employees are recognized for their critical role each play in working toward enhancing the quality of life for residents. And provided with the agenda is a recommended motion.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make a motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the proclamation designating May 7th through May 12th, 2023 as Public Service Recognition Week.
And I will second that one.
Thank you. Okay, any comment on this item? Thanks to the manager for bringing this to us. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. And next is a proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to officially recognize Emergency Medical Services Week. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Provided with the agenda is a draft proclamation to officially recognize the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2023 to be Emergency Medical Services Week in Ferguson Township, and encourages all residents to join the township to recognize pre-hospital and hospital emergency medical service practitioners for the many hours that they spend preparing for and delivering care to residents and visitors within our communities. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make the motion?
I'll move that the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors adopt a proclamation designating May 21 through May 27, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
This is Patty. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item?
I would definitely put in a plug for those to support their local EMS through their membership drives.
Absolutely.
They can definitely use the money, and it usually saves you a lot of expense in the unfortunate event you might need it.
Yes.
I'll comment.
Good point. Thank you.
I'll comment as well. It would be my preference that we would have been spending our agenda time talking about the potential to establish a regional authority and/or establish COG funding for our emergency services, because I feel like while proclamations certainly have their place in acknowledging literally everyone in every sector of the township, that really what we should probably do is follow up with actions. So I'll just add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Next up is award of contract 2023 C6 curb and ramp upgrades. Mr. Modricker.
On March 28th, we opened bids publicly, read them aloud for contract 2023 C6. The bid was advertised in the Center Daily Times, sent out to potential bidders. This particular contract involves curb and ramp upgrades at road intersections and crosswalks as needed to comply with the American with Disability Act standards associated with our road projects that receive paving and microsurfacing. Other municipalities are permitted to piggyback on this contract. 5 bids were received as follows. Big Rock Paving, $62,656.50. M&B Services, $69,477.96. Walnut Construction, $70,715, no cents. Midstate Paving, $82,605.25. Glen Hall Baker, $98,280, no cents. Engineer's estimate for the work is $69,501. There are budgeted funds available for the work. I recommend the Board of Supervisors award the contract to Bigot Rock Paving, LLC, for a total of $62,656.50.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors award the contract just read by Dave Modricker.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item?
Very encouraging to see a good competitive spread of bids. Always like that.
Thank you. Other discussion on this? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. Next is award of contract 2023 C8 pavement markings. Mr. Modricker.
Bids were open publicly for this contract, 2023 C8 pavement markings, again on Tuesday, March 28th. The bid was advertised in the CDT as required. Unlike the previous award, and unlike the last park project we opened, we received one bid. And I will say that that is typical for this contract. Alpha Space Control, Inc., the total amount, $385,434.63, includes 11 municipalities piggybacking on this contract. Ferguson Township's portion of this is $131,713.26. So I don't know if I made that very clear at the beginning, but this is one of the contracts that we let that has a lot of interest in others that piggyback on it. And we've been doing that for many years. Ferguson Township's share, I did mention what that was. It does include pavement eradication. So this contractor not only paints the lines, but they have the equipment to remove existing lines. We do that in advance of our microsurfacing. So it's clear in the memo that I wrote, and it's clear in the budget where the funds come from. So I just want you to know this contractor also does that eradication. We did send this to 21 contractors that are qualified to do the work to solicit more bids. You can see we received one. Alpha Space Control has performed this contract in past years. We work well with them. A bid tabulation is attached. I recommend the Board of Supervisors award contract to Alpha Space Control, Inc., in the amount of $385,434.63.
Thank you. Would someone like to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors award the contract just read by Dave Modricker.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
This is Corey, I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll give my second to Corey.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on this item?
Something that I've noticed over the last 10 years, and especially with like this year, we've had a rather mild winter, and going around the township, a lot of the pavement markings appear to be in really good condition, but it seems like every year we always repaint them. Is there ever any considerations of like de-scoping the project, try to save a little bit of money and just,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at that very hard 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we saw a more than normal increase in the cost for doing pavement markings. Probably similar to the time when we were seeing cost increases for a number of things. So staff looked at all the roads that we're paving and the legends that we are marking, and we're not doing them every year.
Oh.
So there's a plan. And in that plan in general, I would say that the higher volume roads we paint every year, the lower volume are every other year. So we did move away from painting them every year. Yeah, so along with the paint line, there are glass beads that go in the paint.
Did you use the glass?
So, yeah, the glass beads provide their retroreflectivity, or they're reflective at night. So one of the things that you may lose is some of the night reflectability if we're not painting them as frequently, even though during the day you may see some of that white paint. So I think we did look pretty hard at that, and have been trying hard to, keep those costs down for the painting.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely can relate to the glass beads, especially at nighttime when driving, especially when it's wet. It does tend to sometimes feel a little more challenging, especially if the glass beads have been worn off.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Other comments?
Questions?
Discussion? Yes.
Does this contract include the Musser Gap crossing?
It does.
Okay. And have we been at all successful in getting other partners to take a turn at doing that? Since it's really not our responsibility, it's not PennDOT's, it's not Clearwater's, it's not CRPA, we decided we'll just do that as a favor, and now we're just kind of doing that, and then Whitehall's going to be developed, and there's going to be more people crossing there. Has anybody else volunteered to chip in, like Penn State, going to put a ding, 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 click, clack?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any of these things?
Yeah,
Okay.
PennDOT has taken the position, including the bike lane markings on Whitehall Road, that it's the locals that are required to do the legends for the crossings and for the bike lane. So that's kind of...
Then that will lead me to my next question then. So we will always be doing that for Clearwater's crossing there for their trail. So Ferguson, if we want safe crossing there, we'll always be paying for that there, for that.
Well, when it came up for discussion, I kind of looked to the manager and board for direction on that, and the direction I got was included.
Yeah, because we don't want people to die, but we also don't necessarily want to pay for it always. So if other partners wanted to help pay for that regional asset, because what we were talking about is how dangerous it is, and how maybe we could partner on a grant, maybe get a click, clack, I forget what it's called, Dave. It is a weird name like that, so I'm not crazy. A flip flap, whatever. But that's just an idea I'm putting out there now. But then the other question is, since now I know that we are responsible for legends and whatnot, are they kind of slippery sloping that and being we can also go ahead and paint that intersection down there that they just did? Because I've got to say it in public now. I've been waiting for them to come repaint them. Now, I haven't been there in 4 days maybe, but they're invisible.
Because these are good comments to bring back to the MPO, because that's,
Because we were talking about line painting, he said we have to do it.
Those are PennDOT, yeah,
Well, he just said PennDOT.
I'm addressing the problem with the paint on the intersection, and how those roads, that's getting redone by PennDOT, and so they've already been in touch with that contractor. So if there's other things about this, we can bring it back to.
Yeah, are we painting the crosswalks there? Didn't you just say we're responsible for that?
For the new traffic signal.
Yeah.
At the new traffic signal, what the chair was referring to, and you probably know, is that PennDOT's going to resurface that road. And so they'll take care of the long lines, but any of the markings associated with the signal, just like every other signal, that's in the signal permit and becomes a responsibility of the township.
Okay, so is that in here then? Or is that going to be next year?
It will be next year if it's not now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Other comments on this item? And if not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Thank you. Okay, up next is award of contract 2023-C9, microservicing, and Mr. Moderator.
This contract was opened publicly on Tuesday, March 27th. This is contract 2023-C9 microsurfacing. It includes microsurfacing in Ferguson Township and Harris Township. So again, other municipalities can piggyback. In this case, one other municipality did, Harris Township. There were a number of folks that attended the bid opening, as noted in my memorandum. We did advertise it in the Center Daily Times, and we solicited 10 contractors that are qualified to perform this work. And we received one bid, Asphalt Paving Systems, Inc., total $507,288.70. Ferguson Township share $479,278.20. The engineer's estimate is listed in the bid. The single bid for asphalt paving systems is slightly over the line item in the budget, but if you look at Fund 35, which is liquid fuels, which includes the pavement markings and the eradication and the curb ramps, we are within budget. Recommend the Board of Supervisors award contract 2023 C9 microsurfacing in the amount of $507,288.70 to Asphalt Paving Systems, Inc.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors award the contract just read by Dave Mondricker.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Court. I second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item?
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Dave. My question is for you.
Hi, Laura.
I know we talked about this once before, recently, the center line rumble strips, and how this year the plan wasn't to make any roads with those. I think this is my opportunity to confirm with you, Dave, that none of this contract includes center line rumble strips.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other discussion on this item? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. Okay, next up, thank you, Mr. Modericker, is a discussion on the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau Agritourism Infrastructure Grant Award in the amount of $8,000. And Ms. Martin will present that.
Thank you. The township received a grant award in the amount of $8,000 from the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau Agritourism, also referred to as HVAB. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the application and guideline requirements for the use of funds. The application that was submitted in April of 2022, it identifies using the grant award funds to erect a banner over 45 as well as TOD signage, TOD standing for Tourism-Oriented Destination Signage. Generally, these types of grant submissions come before the board in the form of a resolution for an opportunity for the board to discuss and then approve. This application was submitted and the funds have actually already been received. If the board would like to discuss this item and determine if they would like to approve staff to using funds for how it's been described in the application this evening, that would be really helpful. Staff would go ahead and submit for a time extension request from HVAB. We have 1 year to use the funds unless if a time extension request was granted by HVAB. And then we also would be looking for the board to identify how they would like the funds to be used. And I'm happy to answer any questions or comments to assist in the discussion.
Okay. So I guess I would just start by asking you if, you have some information. I mean, I guess off the top, my questions would be how many signs would this pay for? Or would this pay for the banner? Or, if that kind of thing? Like, what are we looking at that this would?
Yeah, so staff talked just briefly without having any cost estimates provided. Staff looked to Public Works to get an idea of what cost would look like to have the banner erected over 45, and with the installation of like footers and the telescoping poles, it's our understanding that alone could be between $4,000 to $8,000, but the actual surveying that would need to be completed by an engineering firm to just identify what the wind dynamics would be, if, based on the proposed size of the signage. So there's costs that would exceed the grant $8,000 awarded, but we would have to get a cost estimate to be more precise and understand what that cost would look like. For Todd signage, I'm less familiar with what the cost would look like for Todd signage. Nor it's my understanding that staff we'd have to prepare kind of a process to identify what businesses in the township would be eligible to receive the funds for Todd signage. In the application that was submitted to HVAB, it looks like an estimate of $875 for each Todd sign is what was calculated, but we would need to get confirmation with the cost estimate.
Okay, and those signs would just be in the township?
That would be dependent on direction from the board. If the funds would be used to provide Todd signage, if approved by the board, for businesses within the township or businesses participating in the Route 45 Getaways event, which is, it extends from Pine Grove Mills into Harris Township and extends into Millheim Borough.
So it sounds like we need more time. Is that what I'm gleaning?
That certainly would give us direction, bless you, and extend time to further discuss.
Okay, and there's the ability to apply for an extension?
Yes.
Okay. Let's look for other common discussion too, but I think that's what I was thinking too. So I'll go first online to Corey if you have anything.
No.
Thanks. I don't know who wants to start. No.
I'm good with time extension.
Okay.
Is that what the question is?
Well, I guess if you have, Patty suggested it, but she didn't make a motion to table it yet, so.
That's fine with me.
To table it, okay.
No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I thought your motion was to ask for a time extension, and I thought that's what Jeremy said, a time extension for the grant. And
Okay, I
then you
guess-
said something completely different, so I'm not sure what I'm talking about right now. Could you restate what you were saying, Patty?
I was just saying it sounded like we need more time, but I didn't make a motion.
When you say we need more time, did you mean for the grant, or did you mean as a board?
I meant as a board, because it's for staff to do some more research.
So what's the deadline? Do we need to move to file for an extension at this meeting? Would that be helpful to staff? Is it, I don't know the time constraints of it.
It's my understanding that the deadline is the end of this month.
Oh, okay. So we should look for a motion then to file an extension anyways.
So
okay.
moved, yes.
And I will second that.
Okay, any discussion on the motion asking staff to please file for an extension on the grant? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, so now we have that, can we table this and bring it back after, we've asked a couple of questions. I guess any other questions could be submitted unless there's other things.
I have a question.
Unless there's other things right now, then we can, certainly, we've got 15 minutes allotted to this, and I think we took 5, so.
I have a question. So when I go to the far-off land of Lamont every couple days for my coffee from a Cafe Lamont, and once a year, there's a banner up that talks about the Strawberry Festival. In this far-off village of Lamont, they have apparently solved the equation of the wind shear and the tundra and the scary whatever it is that we're facing for our banner. In Millheim, if you travel to Millheim, you'll see that they also have a banner that goes across Route 45, same route even, Route 45, in that far-off land, they have a banner. I think that Ferguson Township is under the same like laws of physics and even the same laws of PennDOT. And every community around us has village banners. But I have been literally trying since I think 2017, definitely since 2018, to help the village get the banner. What is it that's so different about Ferguson Township? That's so different from College Township and from Millheim Borough, that they have solved this and we have not. What is the critical difference? Because we are all able to solve it. I think because it's not about the laws of physics, it must just be about the laws. What is it? Because if we can't put the money toward a banner, maybe we don't want an extension, maybe we want to kill it.
And that can still be done, so, we'll bring it back.
But like, what is it? It's a mystery to me. In fact, I sent you all an email exchange between the previous manager and myself talking about how College Township, they just send their folks out and they just put up the banner and then they go out and then they take down the banner, and it's that easy for them. It's that easy. That's a PennDOT road. 45 in Millheim's a PennDOT road. This is a PennDOT road. So many things are the same. What is the different thing? Because if we know what the different thing is, then we can get our banner. So that's the question. If we could know what the different thing is, because we can change it if it's a law, right? If it's not a law, then
I think those are good questions, and that came up before in just talking about the banner discussion, and what the engineer had been out looking at. So if we pose those questions, ask for the time extension, and then bring this back, staff will be able to have some information to share with us.
But just the one question, like, what is the difference, right, between Lamont, Millheim, and us, that they can have the banners and we can't have the banner?
Okay.
They have even a red light. They each even have a red light near where they put their banner. I mean, it is like identical, right? They even have real red light, not just blinker red lights. They each do. So what is the difference? That's the one.
Okay. So do we need a motion to table also this item? Would you like that? Okay.
Motion to table this item?
And I will second that.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We'll be bringing it back. And then additional questions can be submitted to the manager and to ask staff at this time. Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, and again, any other questions, comments can be sent to the manager in advance of the next discussion on that item. Okay, I need to get back to my agenda. Okay, up next is discussion on a request from the Chamber of Business and Industry of Center County, CBICC, for a monetary contribution. Ms. Martin.
Yes, provided with the agenda is a letter that the township received from the Center County Chamber of Business and Industry of Center County. The board is asked to discuss the monetary contribution request received and make a decision if there is interest in providing that monetary contribution or not, and staff will respond accordingly.
Thank you, and that request letter was included in the agenda. So comments, discussion, we can start over here.
I'd prefer not to begin, if that's okay.
Yep, we can start on this end. Patty, Jeremy?
Yeah,
Nobody wants to start.
I don't know. I harken back to.
Don't point my way.
I harken back to a time when Presenji was here.
Interesting. I think my comments were going to be about that predecessor of mine.
It's a memorable time.
About the. So what exactly would it be?
Yeah, I was going to say, could you, for everybody who didn't delve into the agenda, could you just briefly synopsis the request, since they're not here to ask it themselves? Oh, they are here. We did not know.
Oh, no, we didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. May we have the person who's here? I didn't know they were here.
Presentation
Yeah.
or something.
Ms. Martin, did you want to share anything? And then I'll invite.
Yes, I'm looking for the letter.
Sorry, I had no idea.
No.
And it's not up as of yet. I'm pulling it up. Possibly.
I'll take this moment to take back my statement. There is a person here to synop it for us.
Yeah,
That's a
great.
verb.
Okay, well, while Ms. Martin's looking for that, if somebody from in the room wanted to come up and speak, please come up to the podium and give us your name and who you're representing this evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Janine Logier. I'm the Vice President for Membership Engagement of the Chamber of Business and Industry of Center County. Greg, the President and CEO of the Chamber, couldn't be here tonight, so he asked that I step in. And really, I'll ask Centrise to step in if she feels I mischaracterize anything, but part of the work of the Chamber is economic development. We are the leading economic development entity for the county, and we actually ask all of the municipalities at some point each year to make a contribution to what we call the Center County Economic Development Partnership. Those funds are used specifically for economic development. In the coming year specifically, the funds will be used for two fairly big projects, the first of which is bringing an economic development council and a strategic plan to the county. So that's an economic development strategic plan for the county. So the idea of having a data-based approach to identifying the most important things we can do across the county, while also understanding each municipality, right? They have the things they need to do and they want to do, and how do we as a unit put together the most effective comprehensive plan that leads to what we like to call smart, sustainable growth. As you all know, not every economic development venture or entity is a good fit for Center County, and we want to put those pieces into place with a broad group of stakeholders to help us identify what those things are, to help us identify the initiatives for the next 2 to 3 years. The goal for the Economic Development Plan and the Economic Council that will govern that process is really to be proactive instead of reactive as an entity. So that's what the majority of the funds will be used for. We are bringing on an Economic Development Vice President, and that is, to be perfectly honest, because the need is there. There's more work to be bringing in industry and helping industries that are here thrive and survive than we can do on our current staffing. We're excited that will be taking place, and that's sort of what the requests are that we make each year to the townships, is to the Economic Development Partnership, and that is what it will support in the next 12 months.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to remain up there in case there's questions.
Sure.
That might be helpful. Centrise, was there something you wanted to bring up or?
Madam Chair, I found the letter. It's in the agenda packet. I'm happy to read it. It provides information that was just shared with us regarding the desire to hire a new Vice President of Economic Development. The letter continues to read, I have already received several promising resumes, and I am forming a hiring committee. If you know of any outstanding candidates for the position, please let us know. As the leading economic development entity for the county, the Chamber will develop a comprehensive economic development strategic plan in 2023. So it very much aligns with what Ms. Janine Lozier has just shared with us, and I can't really answer any questions. I'm just sharing with you what the township received and provided within your agenda packet is in front of me.
Thank you. And the letter was also kind of a description of the contribution levels and benefits of those. So any questions? Whoever wants to start.
Do you want just questions?
Questions for now while our guest is standing at the podium, and then we can have discussion. Yeah.
I don't think I have any questions, no, but thank you.
No, I don't have any questions for our presenter, no.
Okay, thank you so much. Very much appreciate you sharing that. It's helpful. Okay, we can get into discussion now.
Okay. Do you want me to say a few things about just like a little bit of history, or no?
No, I mean, I was looking at the history of the donations that we've made too. So yeah, if you want to get into that, that'd be good.
Yeah. So I guess since I mostly know the history since I've been on the board, because I've been more involved in that way. And since I've been on the board has steadily over time chosen to take a different direction with economic development. When I talked to Mr. Scott last year when I was the chair here, I had mentioned to him that was my take on the board, that we were really still philosophically finding a different philosophical path for economic development than typically CBIC, the organization, did. So I was hesitant to bring him to the board at that time. What I had reflected was that I thought that maybe if he has an opportunity to bring the organization under his leadership and do some things, that maybe this board would be more interested in supporting CBICC. But after like the Nestle debacle and just some non-responsiveness that we have experienced as a board in terms of follow-up on our investments, that I didn't really see it as being very fruitful. And when I say kind of taking a different path with economic development, the best I can describe that as is we look at it as more as like a local economic development or an entrepreneurship kind of ecosystem, and focusing on hospitality, outdoor recreation, which is a growing industry that is really supported by the values expressed by our residents, really focusing on agriculture in both production, manufacturing, also local food production, these kinds of things that really, speak to our residents and are constantly supported by surveys. When I'm not seeing that kind of a thing coming out of their organization, and when I hear regularly from our business owners that CBICC doesn't seem to be meeting their needs, I just struggle with the idea that I would support this at this time. However, I really would like to see our relationship grow, and I would really like to see more effort made with the Ag Ventures start. And also, the resume bank that our hospitality industry was, I don't know if that ended up existing or not, that CBIC was going to develop. But, I hear a lot from hospitality about positions they need to fill, and there's just no pipeline for it. And in towns such as ours, like I said to Mr. Scott, sorry, I'm kind of like, this is an area that is really important to me. And it just feels like it just has not been given the attention as the lead agency for Center County, at least in terms of Ferguson Township. It doesn't feel like that we've been given the attention that we deserve in terms of our business community when I hear what they say. So at this time, also given our budgetary constraints, so I was under the impression that we may be able to do more of a dual-pronged effort. So investing in an effort that's supported by the Pennsylvania Municipal League Sustainable Communities, that's more of a localized effort, and then also supporting the CBICC, which seems to be, airport, big corporate focused, also supporting that. But we don't have the budget for it this year. So if we wanted to do something like that, I really want to see us direct the tiny little bit of budget that we have left for economic development. I want to see us direct that toward an opportunity that's been brought to our door that is just such a good fit for our township. So unless that budget were doubled or tripled, it's such a tiny budget, so when I say that it sounds scary, but it's a teeny tiny budget. But unless it were doubled or tripled, I couldn't support this effort this year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of with Laura. It sounded like an awful lot like a hiring position, and I think we have our own hiring needs right here on our staff with the economic development and things like that. So I think I'm in favor of skipping over it this year.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you were mentioning about one of my predecessors, and I know back at that time they did express some concerns with us in putting out this investment and how it was going to be spent, and I would definitely like to see us take those dollars and kind of invest those into projects that bring a direct benefit to Ferguson Township businesses. That is in a transparent manner. I know there's been some transparency concerns.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Corey.
I share Jeremy's thoughts exactly. He said it better than I probably could have.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks. Okay, I'm in agreement with all those who spoke before me, and I just want to ask Centrise if you know offhand what, if anything, we contributed last year, or was it only our dues, our membership?
I think that there was only a membership due.
Okay, so we do maintain a membership in there, yes, so that wouldn't change. We still have that.
That's correct.
Okay, so I think everyone's in agreement that we leave the donation amount at the membership dues amount. Do you need a motion from us if we're not doing anything above the dues? Okay.
I have a question about that. I mean, I really do. I'm not just saying that. I really would love to see us continue to develop a relationship with CBIC that's more deep than just a kind of a request for funding and then kind of a no, just one where we talk about our value system and what we really see what we would want to see that organization do. I don't know. I'll just say that now. I'd really like to continue that conversation, but seems to be we're kind of stuck in this particular cycle right now. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on this item then? I'm seeing nothing. Look to the manager if you needed anything else from us on this item before we move on. No, thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. I do appreciate it. Okay. All right, moving on, we have a waiver request for 1647 West Gatesburg Road, and we'll go to Ms. Wargo.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great, so please bear with me. I am on my way back from the National Planning Conference and my train was a little late. So I am on the side of a road right now. So included in the agenda packet is an application for a waiver request from Mr. Schaffler. And this is for Chapter 223063 Minor Land Development Plan. So he is proposing to convert an existing second floor garage space into an apartment. This property is located in the Rural Agricultural Zoning District. It's approximately 12.84 acres. And we've Staff and Planning Commission have both reviewed this request, and we are recommending the approval of the waiver from 223063 minor land development. Essentially, after further review by staff, this is already an existing detached garage. He is not within the regional growth boundary. He is working with the SEO to ensure that there's enough capacity for this additional dwelling on the lot. It is permitted within the zoning district to have this type of dwelling, so staff-wise, we're really not seeing anything glaring at us, and we're recommending that the board approve this waiver request.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone like to make the motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors grant the application for a waiver from 22306 minor land development for 1647 West Gatesburg Road.
This is Corey, I second.
Thank you. Discussion? You can start over here.
I just, Jenna, I'm glad to hear it's allowed here, but are there any zoning districts left that we don't allow ADUs? And I'm supporting this.
Minus the single-family residential zoning district. I think that's the only one now. This is also one of those tweaks that staff has been looking at before we had this under minor land development. This would have been a full-fledged land development plan.
Wow.
So we're trying to figure out the best, let's say, ordinance writing on addressing these types of issues, whether they are within the regional growth boundary or outside, because depending on the location, it does have other impacts that we like to look at.
Mm-hmm. That kind of was going to be my next question. Like, there has to be a cutoff, though, where it's not even, obviously, like this one, where it's not even a minor land development plan. And I know the board hasn't deliberated on, we don't have an official policy, but like, this is planning 101. Infill is the word. We want infill. Infill is good, 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 and good. So anyway, I'm glad to hear that it was brought to us. So thanks. That's it.
Other comments on this item? I'm seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Next is the IMP subdivision time extension request. Ms. Wargo.
All right, so providing the agenda is a time extension request for the IMP subdivision plan. The board granted approval with conditions at the September 6, 2022 meeting, and per resolution 1996-17, staff is only permitted to accept 3 time extensions after a plan has received approval with conditions. Also provided in the agenda is a memorandum from the Township engineer describing the work performed by the applicant to meet these outstanding conditions of approval, and he is recommending that the board grant an additional time extension be granted.
Thank you. Okay. So let's start with a motion on this one too.
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors grant the time extension for the IMP. Right? Am I supposed to say that?
Sounds about right.
Subdivision plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Thank you. Okay, discussion on this item. Seeing none. All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, please say no. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, moving on. Up next is a zoning variance for 3189 West Pine Grove Road, and back to Ms. Wargo.
On March 23rd, 2023, Derek Lucas submitted an application for a variance hearing at 24008-008A and 24008-005, property zone rural agriculture, and the applicant is requesting variances from the minimum 50-acre lot size requirement. And the result of that subdivision, essentially, that we would be looking at doing to address these encroachment issues we've identified on this property. It would be creating 2 non-conforming lots. So existing right now, there are 3 structures that were believed to have been built on Mr. Lucas's property, and turns out that they are not. They are encroaching into the neighbor's property. They would like to do a lot line adjustment, 0.17 acres. To address that issue, our ordinance does not permit us to conduct subdivision plans when we are creating non-conforming lots. So in this zoning district, we only have the 2 area bulk categories, 1 to 2 acres and then 50 and plus. Both of these lots right now are non-conforming. They will remain non-conforming. However, this lot line adjustment will make it a little bit better for them. We won't have any non-conforming structures on the property. And staff's recommendations that the Board of Supervisors remain neutral.
Thank you. Okay, so we can start with discussion on this item.
I just have a question. Yes. So like, does it not make sense for our ordinance to say newly non-conforming lots? I mean, if I understand this correctly, they were non-conforming, they're still going to be non-conforming. That's what you said, but they have to seek a variance because they're creating non-conforming, but they were already non-conforming. Is that it?
Correct. So we have a statement within our zoning ordinance that says that we cannot conduct subdivision plans that result in non-conforming properties. It really doesn't speak to existing non-conforming properties and anything along those lines.
But like, we could have done that in our zoning rewrite. Like, we could have just put newly non-conforming. If it created newly non-conforming, it would be prohibited. And that would have just solved
Absolutely.
this. Okay, cool. Just checking. But instead, they're going to go for a variance. Okay. Is there some list somewhere you're keeping of things that we should change that are like that? Not that I should.
You know it.
Okay, thanks, Jenna. Okay, that was my other question.
Okay, yes. Any other comments on this item before we go to a motion? Okay, so I'll look for a motion, if anyone would care to make it.
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors remain neutral on the variance.
Okay, is there a second?
I don't know why we wouldn't support it. Sorry, is there a second?
No.
This is Corey, I second.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, discussion.
I don't know why we wouldn't support it. Just because it's against the ordinance? I mean, it seems, anyway, is it because we'd send a lawyer there then and we shouldn't bother? But like, if we could just say that's so silly, could that go forward too? That's so silly that they have to do that?
Right, and I think it's a good comment for Jenna too, just in her list of things we're fixing from the ordinance rewrite. But if the manager or solicitor wants to speak to that, our stance on usually remaining neutral, which is generally what the board does on most items, because we do have to send solicitor or a representative.
Yeah, so staff is just presenting the recommended motion as neutral, but obviously it's up to the board as part of your discussion or consensus to, oppose and direct the manager to attend or have the solicitor attend. We've done it in variation in the past. So staff's just being respectful in that if there are difference of opinions between the board members, that discussion is with the board to make that decision.
And generally, overall, the boards historically remain neutral on a large number of items.
Yes, and I'll look to the solicitor. I think she can provide a little bit more clarity about the governing.
I think that's helpful. So just to clarify what that means,
Thank you.
In practice.
Well, let me just jump in here quickly and say, I think the practice has been that if your ordinance, and whether it should be that way or not, is a legislative issue and you can take that up at some point, But if your ordinance says you have to do a certain thing, generally you are supporting your ordinance. And so while I appreciate suggesting that, you might go to a meeting of a zoning hearing board and essentially say, well, we think the variance should be granted. You're essentially saying to your zoning officer, we don't believe in our ordinance. And I know that's not what you mean, but I really think the dilemma here with non-conforming uses is that just because you have a non-conforming lot size, and Jenny, you can certainly jump in on this, but just because you have a non-conforming lot size that's being subdivided to create other non-conformities, I'm not sure you want that to just automatically happen either, right? Because I think you want to be keeping control of non-conforming uses and how they, and whatever non-conformities are out there, you want to keep control of that. So, but my understanding, and I've only been in this role now, Laura, for 2 years less, is that the position the board has typically taken is we're going to remain neutral on something that is as written in our ordinance, even if we may not be 110% behind it, if that makes any sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wondered, I forgot though, I remember that if we oppose it, we do send a solicitor, but I don't know if we send a solicitor if we support it. And I'm not going to get fussy about it. We should move on so we don't waste meeting time. But do we send you, Betsy, if we support it? I don't know that we did.
I don't know that you have done that in the past.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I think your issue is primarily when you don't support something, you want to have legal representation.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Just fact checking my head. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, other discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Moving on to zoning appeal, 1004 West College Avenue, and back to Ms. Wargo.
All right, on March 24th, 2023, Charlie Shore of Stevens and Lee submitted an application for an appeal hearing at 24002A057 on behalf of the property owner. So this property is zoned terrace streetscape, and the applicant is appealing the Director of Planning and Zoning's determination of 27304-3B3, which permits applicants to designate 15% of the residential units in a vertical mixed-use building as age-restricted units. Then an additional 20 feet of height may be added to the permitted maximum height. And really, it's a validity challenge of our workforce housing ordinance, which requires that workforce units either be built on site or a fee in lieu is paid or built off site. So the applicant is proposing in this instance to restrict the age-restricted units to at least one individual, be 21 years and older, and is appealing the amount of fee in lieu the applicant would need to pay for those workforce units that would be required with the proposed development. So staff's recommendation is that the Board of Supervisors remain neutral on the appeal.
Thank you. And I'll go to the board first. I have an opinion on this item.
Okay, so
I can start or you can start.
You go right ahead.
Now, here is an example of one I would want to oppose. It's complicated and it's an appeal of a decision. And so I would feel it would be appropriate to have township representation there in our solicitor. So I'll leave it at that and move on to other comments, but let me go to the solicitor first.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely one that I think you have to engage in. And I think when the original appeal was filed, it was not clear on the face that it was a validity challenge. But as Jenna noted, it has now been clarified by Mr. Shore on behalf of his client that this is a validity challenge. I think whenever there's a validity challenge, I think the board needs to step in here. I will just say I think staff has done an admirable job with this project in trying to work with the applicant, and I think in this particular instance, I can't guarantee you how all this shakes out. I know why the applicant is filing a zoning appeal, and that makes sense because obviously the outcome of this decision then affects how they do their final land development plans. But I think there really are two validity challenges. One is related to this incentive for age-restricted units, and the other is really, as it turns out, initially it looked like they were just going to challenge the fee that was being paid, but they have fashioned it in such a way to be a validity challenge of the entire workforce housing ordinance that we passed 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So, I think you have to be involved.
Thanks very much for that. Okay.
You don't want to say that, we don't want to say that motion then.
Right. Go ahead, Corey.
I will make a motion that the Board of Supervisors opposes the appeal.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Thank you to staff.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you. Okay, is motion a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Okay, up next is communications to the board. If anyone has anything to share. Patty?
I do, yes. I guess this is more a question for Centrise or Dave Modricker. On North Allen Street in Overlook Heights, there is a residence that has a handicap designated parking space there. And the resident that was put in place for no longer lives there. So they were sort of curious what happens to that handicapped park designated. It's got the painting and a sign, I believe. And they were just sort of curious as to what happens.
Thank you.
That's a great question. And I will look to Dave.
Yeah, would you like me to respond?
Sure.
Yeah, I think if the board's aware or the resident that it's no longer needed, just let staff know that, which I think you're doing.
Yes.
And we would remove it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yep, is that what's being requested?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you guys have like a permit of the person that was specifically made for? I know it happened in Pine Grove Mills before too.
Yeah, I don't know that we issue permits. I think we get the request. The state allows that jurisdiction to the locals, and so we mark it. Let me see if we need to remove something from a resolution too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other communications to share?
Just some emails about the center kitchen. That's what I
had
received
as well.
Yeah, I had received a communication just thanking me for the about the discussion about the parking study at Baileyville. Sounded like they were pleased with the outcome and would like to be aware of anything that may affect the community hall or that community in the future. And I think we do try to do a good job of communicating when with our upcoming meetings and whatnot. I did receive a concern about this the discontinuation of Coffee and Conversation. Somebody was reached out to us concerned about that. They definitely did not support discontinuing Coffee and Conversation. Then I did receive about 8 emails in support of center markets.
Yes.
One more, I'm sorry. And I did receive comment too that sometimes there's a trouble hearing us when we're speaking. So if we would lean forward and speak clearly and forcefully into our microphones so that people in the audience and on Zoom can hear us.
Oh, okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
I have some communications. And also a question about the follow-up with the parking, the no parking study.
I wondered if they have communicated that auction schedule to the community, because I'll be darned, it's a community hall, and I'm a member of the community Facebook pages, but I'll be darned if I can find that information anywhere.
I thought I saw something on their on the community hall website. I would also, I'm not familiar with the auction here, but I
Go to his business website?
I'm pretty sure auctions are widely advertised.
Oh,
They're definitely
haven't
widely
seen them anywhere.
attended.
I mean, it is his business, so I guess I would expect his business to advertise them, but it's not at his business location because he does them all at the community hall. But I just wondered because, we were going to be following up to make sure the parking happened properly, like we did with the Naked Egg, but then if we don't know when the auctions are, then we don't know really when to make sure they're all parking the right way.
Don't think the police frequent Baileyville every minute.
No,
but I imagine
they don't.
Stroll around there.
I think Mr. Keogh might have something to share about the
actually.
schedule. We'll go to Mr. Keogh.
I have more comments about public conversations.
He might not have heard you.
Oh, Bill?
He's off mute.
Oh, yeah.
Two things about the communication issue. Number one, they're leasing the hall, so the Baileyville Community Hall doesn't in and of itself advertise a number of their events that rental properties or rental individuals use. However, the Center Daily Times, a public newspaper, does carry all of those auction event dates and content whenever, prior to whenever Mr. Gilligan is having an auction there. He needs to advertise them because that's part of his operation. And it's done through him, and it's in the newspaper sometimes multiple times, and clearly a week and sometimes 2 weeks before the event.
Thank you.
But the hall is not responsible for that.
Thanks. Thanks
you.
so much, Bill. Okay, back to my communications to the board. So in addition, I had a communication to the board about our conversation about motor oil burning. I actually had two communications. One is from an air quality expert who validated that waste motor oil burning is definitely an environmental issue that we should be concerned about. So my understanding is that we're going to be brought back some information about that from staff. Is that correct? You were going to be looking into that?
I don't believe that was a direction from the board.
So what did we think that the board said about the motor oil burning? I can watch CNET, they're so valuable.
You were going to follow up with the manager about the specific site of problem.
Oh, but they were also going to find out about the regulatory framework, right?
We didn't direct staff to do that because we didn't know. You were going to follow up with the manager about where the specific incident had occurred.
I'm pretty sure they were also going to follow up about, remember, don't we have a talk about how if it's DEP, and I specifically said I would never want us to do the job of DEP, so you were going to find out if they had purview?
I think the first step was just that was identifying the site of the incident.
Well, I
And
think
the board-
Jenna knows
I don't think
that,
the board
doesn't she?
I don't know, but I think we can ask staff to follow back up and put it in the next report. But yeah, I think.
What are we putting, what was it?
Well, I don't think we need to know a location to decide if we want to do an ordinance prohibiting it. So I can put it back on the agenda. If that's the way you were thinking it was going, I'll pop it right back on the agenda.
Good, okay.
Because that kind of got derailed with when Jenna was like, oh yeah, we're dealing with the problem of waste motor oil burning. And I was like, oh, nobody told me. Remember?
I think the question is just to go back at this point and make sure we're all on the same page of where we left it at that last meeting. And we can ask.
My recollection is there was a question or an inquiry regarding the scope and number of concerns, and please, anyone chime in if you're remembering it differently. And the conversation then kind of continued and left with Ms. Denny reaching out to the manager to better understand if the complaints, if we had 2 complaints or if the 2 complaints were the same complaint. I had acknowledged that there had been some communication by email regarding a resident allegedly having been burning motor oil, and so it wasn't very clear as to if the communication that I was referencing at the last board meeting was the same complaint that Ms. Denny received. And the way I recall is that the board left it with Ms. Denny reaching out to have a better understanding if it was one of the same in response to the question I believe Ms. Stevens had asked, which was what's the scope here? Is this 1 or 2 complaints, or is this?
Okay, I'll write another consent agenda item that just talks about whether there's 1 complaint or 1 million complaints. Since it's an air quality issue, we shouldn't allow waste motor oil burning. I thought that's what we had been talking about, and that was just some kind of inquiry you guys were curious about because Jenna has apparently some other offender or something, but I'm interested in ordinance prohibiting something that's detrimental to our environment.
Well, that was, okay, and we can follow up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what that communication was about. Back to communications, the person was expressing disappointment at our board for our lack of interest in following our environmental Bill of Rights that had been passed by referendum. So I think that what they were saying was kind of blowing off like, oh, well, waste motor oil burning. Oh, well, if it's only 1 person, we won't worry about it or something. I'm not really sure what they were.
Communication.
Yeah, the communication was that we did not seem to take seriously the Environmental Bill of Rights. That was the communication based on our conversation that night. So I can see why now that we've gotten the replay, but I'll get it back there and give us another opportunity to just straight up regulate that. I thought I was doing that, and then I thought maybe the manager had said she thought I was trying to be DEP, or we all thought I was trying to be DEP or something, and then it kind of got derailed.
Characterization of the discussion, so I think it'd be beneficial for you to go back and watch it, because I think the last thing we were looking at was identifying the site.
Okay.
Madam Chair, not to prolong this, but I do see the stated motion that Ms. Danini made that I did second, that we were going to table that discussion and request staff to communicate with you about the origin of the complaint and see if it needed to come back to the board. And from my recollection, a lot of us on the board, we kind of needed some more context on this to really make a decision.
Okay, so I will bring that back, and we won't care about how many complaints are or aren't made.
I think we need to
focus on the motor oil.
But this isn't a discussion about that. If you want to submit something via consent agenda, that's fine. I think
that's what I just said I'd do. Yeah,
that's fine.
Okay,
and we'll end it there. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other communications you needed to share?
The Center Markets communications, I got probably 8 of those. I don't think I have any others.
Okay.
No.
Anything else? And I think I had all the same communications that everybody had on Center Markets, parking study, and the other item that Jeremy had mentioned. We have a number of calendar items listed, also present on our township calendar on the website. And would anyone care to make the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's no. Thank you. And I'll second, and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nittany Valley Charter School is a public tuition-free elementary school located in State College, serving students throughout Center County. Chartered since 1998, we provide small class sizes to allow for a whole child approach to learning, where teachers can individualize instruction based on the student's needs. We value the benefits of daily physical activity and time outdoors. Our weekly field trips provide for hands-on learning and experiences outside the classroom while fostering environmental responsibility. Our school is a proud community of parents, students, and teachers working together to provide a unique and exceptional educational experience.
The Patton Township Housing Task Force is continuing to research housing. The pandemic has deepened a housing crisis that confronts communities nationwide. Meeting the challenge in Patton Township requires that we seize this moment to work together to make Patton Township a place for all, a vibrant community where we live, work, and play together. A community where businesses can thrive and employees can find housing that is affordable for them. A welcoming community for all families, including single parents and their children. An elder-friendly community where seniors can afford to stay in the community they helped build. It will take all of us to make Patton Township a place for all. When the Patton Township Housing Task Force formed in early 2021, the housing challenge was already concerning, and unfortunately, it has only worsened. Patton Township is striving to alleviate the attainable housing challenge, and it is also seeking to become a community that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the end of 2021, the task force took its report to the Patton Township Board of Supervisors. Recommendations include allowing accessory dwelling units that could act as naturally occurring affordable housing seamlessly integrated into existing neighborhoods, as well as expanding areas where duplexes are allowed. Reducing parking minimums to save on development costs that would typically be passed on to buyers or renters, and adopting inclusionary zoning regulations to gain new affordable units with new land development projects. The objective is to make changes that will diversify housing and better utilize existing infrastructure so that housing is attainable for people at various income levels, life stages, and abilities. Maybe you or someone you care about has struggled with attaining housing. Consider this your call to action to become part of the Patton Township Housing Task Force as it continues to seize the opportunity to learn and to see its housing recommendations implemented. To get involved, visit the township's new website, which now gives you the ability to sign up for alerts. On the homepage, you will see there is an option to create an account. This allows for a more custom experience. There is also a button on the main page called Alert Sign Up that will lead you to a page named Notify Me. This feature will allow you to select which email lists, meetings, and so on you would like to be emailed about, and you may sign up for text alerts as well. You are also encouraged to follow the township on social media. Look for @Patton Township on Facebook and Instagram. The links are easily accessible on the website homepage too. Together, let's make Patton Township a place for all. Visit our webpage for all the videos in our series, the 2021 Patton Township Housing Task Force Report, and more information.